guard, they on the mic tonight. News coming in left and right. Oh, better with the latest fight. Gene's got the insight tight. Champions rise and they fall. Wire to wire, got it all. Every move in every brawl. Tune in for the curtain call. Wrestling talk all night long. Catch the latest match and song. Ring the bell, let's get it on. Every story bright and strong. In the ring they clash and roar. New rivalries and so much more. Titles change and legends lore.
What is poppin', y'all? It is your boy, it is Guard 3, and welcome back to the Meaty Boyz podcast. And of course, joining me just like every week, he is the greatest co-host of all time, a limousine ride, jet flying, wheel and dealing son of a gun. He is Mo Better. How are you, Mo?
Woo! I'm doing great on a Tuesday night. We're just coming off of Monday Raw. We're getting ready to get into it and talk some wrestling. Let's get it.
No, absolutely. And, there's a lot to talk about this week. We had the Raw on Netflix. We had the second Raw on Netflix. Got the Royal Rumble coming up, but there's a lot of good to talk about. But we're gonna start on the AEW side because I think there's one topic that's absolutely dominated AEW, and it's their overlying storyline with Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. This is a group, for anybody that doesn't know the Death Riders storyline. Jon Moxley beat Bryan Danielson. After turning on him at All Out, he beat him for the AEW title back at Wrestle Dream. And they made this group, and the goal was to take out complacency in AEW. Older vets, those guys sitting in the back just collecting a paycheck, they were going to take them out. Well, the storyline has gone so bad that people are questioning if putting the title on Daniel Bryan, which was an all-time great moment in wrestling last year, was the right call. And I wanted to bring this up to you, Mo, because I'm curious. A lot of people are saying it's just time to pull the plug. What do you think about the whole Death Riders storyline going on? And do you think it's time to pull the plug?
The way that the storyline has played out, yeah, unless they're going to do something new and a little bit more creative with it, then yes, please pull the plug, because my whole thing is their original concept was they were going to get rid of complacency, get rid of guys that are more of a drag on the company, go after some bigger name veterans who aren't really holding their own weight. I really haven't seen them do that consistently. Like, to me, an obvious feud would have been, I don't care if you're a heel or a face, but go after somebody like Bobby Lashley. Go after him and Shelton Benjamin. Like, make it interesting. Give me a storyline that sets the fans up for some exciting cross matches. You really haven't seen that. And I'm actually a Jon Moxley fan, so to be purely honest, I'm a big Moxley fan. I just don't like what they've done with the Death Riders, the storyline as a whole. I thought what they were going to do was be a little bit more creative, a little bit more edgier. I don't think they've really accomplished that to this point.
I completely agree, and it's really frustrating because I was looking forward to it, and it almost just completely went off the rails. What's up, Gene?
What's up, Gene?
And this is almost like the biggest problem with AEW is we're seeing it now with this storyline because it's something they do pretty constantly. They're very good at getting us to the big moment. And the payoff half the time is really good. But when they have to follow up a big moment, they just almost seem like they're just throwing ideas at the wall and hoping they stick. The Death Riders would have been great, except who have they really attacked that has been complacent? Nobody. Haven't really feuded with too many young guys. They had that one fatal four-way at World's End, and now they're feuding with 50-year-old Edge, with 50-year-old Christian Cage waiting in the background. So overall, and the big payoff it seemed like they were going to do is the hero being Darby Allin. Well, guess what? Darby Allin's going to climb Mount Everest, and he's going to be off TV for the next six to 10 weeks. So if you want Darby Allin to be your payoff, you need to keep the fans engaged in this story for another 10 to 12 weeks at least.
Wow.
And that's just not going to happen. People are losing interest as we speak. At first, I was completely against it, but I almost think that you take the title off Moxley long before then and just pivot. You need a hard reset at this point because this isn't going to cut it. You can't wait for Darby Allin to come back. That's just absurd. The fact that, because I doubt Tony Khan would start this storyline seemingly for him if he knew he's going to climb Mount Everest. So one of the problems with him over the years has been unreliability in the main event scene, and it kind of shows here when they start a big storyline for you and you go, hey, by the way, I'm going to climb a mountain real quick, see you in 12 weeks.
Right.
So I think that they just lost the plot with this one, and it's just time to pivot. It's done. It's over. You tried. Maybe you don't even need to strip Mox as champion at this point, but I think at this point it would be best just take the belt off Mox, or at least just start a brand new storyline altogether.
I'm with you on the new storyline. And I think the interesting thing about Moxley as a competitor, as a star, you can take the belt off of him. He's a big enough star that he doesn't need a belt to be a star or maintain being a star. And maybe a Moxley without the belt will make for a more entertaining, more interesting Moxley that we're used to. Because the Death Rider storyline, to me, it's had its death. It's done. It's time to move on. Put Moxley in different situations. He can carry himself as a solo act. He doesn't really need a group. I just think that this was one of those swing and a miss. You move on from it if you're Tony Khan and creative, and you go forward.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And that's really the big one I wanted to cover for the AEW portion. And I really want to jump into it, Mo, because now we've had a week to sit on it. We did a watch along last Monday. The first Raw on Netflix, I figure we just kind of go through everything that happened. And, after a week of sitting on it, what do we think? Do we give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? So, still start at the beginning. Triple H started out with the promo and The Rock. I thought those were fun. I thought there was a fine way to start out Raw on Netflix. You got a lot of casual viewers. You want to suck them in, so why not send out guys that they know? The Rock, everybody knows. Triple H, a lot of people know. So I would give a thumbs up to how they started it out, because as many people that complained about a promo starting it out, I thought it was the right way to go about it, honestly.
No, I had no problem with the way they started out. I like that they knew that this was a new relationship. This is putting them in front of a much bigger audience than being on cable. And they were smart. They brought their stars out, not just The Rock, not just Triple H. Cody was there. Roman Reigns obviously was competing that night. Like that first episode, it felt like a pay-per-view. It felt like it had that pay-per-view air about it. The matches, some of them were big matches and entertaining matches. So look, I completely enjoyed it. I have no problem bringing out the big stars to kind of cut a promo. That's what you do when you have the opportunity that they have now with such a global company like Netflix. So I have no problem with Triple H and company going that route.
No, absolutely. And, that kind of brought us to the first match of the night. We had Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa. Obviously, we all know the end. After a couple of run-ins, Roman wins. The Rock anoints him as the tribal chief again. What do you think? What do you give this one, Mo? Hey, what's good, Kyle? Great to see you in here, sir.
What up, Kyle? What's good, man? I thought it was an entertaining match. I actually think that and I don't know how you feel about this, that every time I see Solo now, you can see an improvement in him, not just in his in-ring skills, but his on the mic skills. Solo's gotten so much more confident and bought into his persona, his character. He's come a long way from being a bodyguard or a right-hand man now. He's solidifying himself as Brett as a star in his own right. The match was an entertaining match. It didn't shock anybody that there were run-ins. You knew there were going to be. So I enjoyed the match. I felt like a lot of people thought, well, this is the end of Bloodline versus Bloodline. I'm not sure it's completely over, but maybe it's more the end of Solo versus Roman.
I agree with that. I would definitely give this a thumbs up. It was a good one. It was a fun match. They even caught us off guard with the Kevin Owens interference. I did not see that coming at all. I thought Drew might get involved. I never thought Owens would, get involved. And at the end of the day, having the Rock and Roman embrace, I think is perfectly fine. And I think it's interesting that we saw the Rock, the next night on CW, NXT, and he told everybody once again, like last year, to just shut up and enjoy the ride. The final boss is taking you on. I'm 20 steps ahead. So I completely agree with that. I think we're done with Roman versus Solo. I think they're trying to swerve us into thinking we're done completely with Roman versus the Bloodline, but I still, in the back of my mind, think it's Rock and Roman is still going to be the move.
I think it's Rock and Roman is going to be the move. The only question I have is what role Paul Heyman will play in this storyline in the build-up. Because you know Paul Heyman, he rolls with the winners. He's loyal to you until he sees somebody that can be better or bigger than you in the moment. He does. He upgrades. And it wouldn't shock me if Paul Heyman switched sides.
It wouldn't shock me either. It really wouldn't. I think we're gonna the Bloodline beats up Solo, Jacob Fatu versus Solo. I do think we're getting that. I think it's a great first match too. It'll be a lot of fun. Those are both big guys that can move very, very well. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's next. I do agree. I think we're getting Jacob Fatu versus Solo, and I still think that Rock and Roman it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, no doubt.
But up after that, we did have a women's championship match to talk about. We did have Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. Mommy was on top. She beats Liv Morgan after multiple interferences. Can I ask a question? How will the WWE pay back Seth Rollins? That's a really good question, and I think let's see. That's a good question. Do you want to answer this one, Mo? How will the WWE pay back Seth Rollins?
I'm gonna let you answer that one first.
I think the answer is they will give him a premium spot at WrestleMania and a win.
Main event.
I think he ends up he could very well be the main event of WrestleMania. But I think the big thing that they'll do, since for all that he's done these past couple of years, like last WrestleMania, he took the loss on night one Netflix. I think you have him and Punk at WrestleMania, and you let him beat Punk, get his win back on the biggest stage. I think that would be huge. Say have Seth be the guy to retire John Cena. That'll be interesting to see, but
I like that idea. I like that idea. But at the same I love that idea, but I also love the idea of Cena getting one more title shot, right? You know what I mean? Like whether or not he wins it, just the opportunity for him to be in a championship match.
See, I don't think Rollins wins the Rumble, but I think he makes sure CM Punk doesn't win the Rumble, and that's how they continue their feud. And I think they find a way to keep it, and they have a really nice big blow off match at WrestleMania. And I
I,
think your way to pay back Seth Rollins is give him a win over CM Punk at the grandest stage of them all.
I agree. I don't think Rollins is going to win. I don't think Drew's going to win. I don't think Punk's going to win. The two that I'm not sure about Roman, and I'm not sure about John Cena.
No, that's fair. I think that because part of my dream booking for WrestleMania, I do think that Randy versus so everything depends on The Rock because I think this could be the favor depending on The Rock. If The Rock wants to wrestle, he's going to get Roman. And then I think that's where we get Punk and Seth. For me, when it comes to the Rumble, I think it could be a couple guys. I think it's either going to be, ironically, I think they're going to go a little old school with the winners. I think you have either John Cena to set up your John Cena versus Gunther match, or you go Randy Orton again. And I think you're setting up Orton Rhodes for WrestleMania. If The Rock isn't there, though, I do think it's Punk and Roman. And then we have to completely reassemble the card. But overall, those are my two early choices to win the Rumble.
I'm gonna take The Rock at his word. You just want to shut your mouth and follow the ride that he's taking you on. If he's gonna take us on a ride, I gotta believe he's talking about himself competing in main events in bigger venues. I don't know if it's gonna be Rock Roman or Rock Cody. I think it's Rock Roman because I do think there's an opportunity to stretch out the bloodline a little bit longer. Not solo again, not solo Roman. I'm just talking about just when you think Roman's rocking the Ulflalo. I think the final boss, I'm just saying, might want to rock that heading into Mania. That would be interesting. I'm just putting it out there. It's too obvious when you hear Drew say, "I'm gonna win it and I'm gonna do it for the good of the company," because you two fools are too wrapped up in your own business. And then Seth is like, "I'm gonna win," and Punk's. I don't think any of those three guys win it. I actually think those three guys spend the whole Royal Rumble going after each other.
I completely agree. I completely agree, 100% with that. And I think when it comes to The Rock, I think we'll know on the 27th, right? Because that's Roman Reigns. He's coming in for a big celebration. We all know how those end in WWE. That never ends well for the person who's having the celebration.
Right,
so
right.
I think if you were going to get Rock and Roman, we'll know before the Rumble. And I think the 27th of January Raw is where we will really start to see the Roman Reigns and Rock, where they're kind of headed. If he doesn't get interfered with at all, or at least if The Rock doesn't attack him or do anything to him, then I don't think we'll get Rock and Roman. So I think that's going to be kind of where we can start to see a really clearer picture of Mania, though, is when Roman comes back on the 27th.
And obviously, let's not forget, because I think that's why Gene thinks it's going to be Punk and Roman, because let's not forget the favor that Roman owes Punk. And you know what it is. He wants Roman at Mania. Which I don't think is impossible, but I approach wrestling the way I approach any other sport. It's a good idea if CM Punk's body can hold up that long. I don't know that it can.
Yeah, I think the favor also could be maybe not Mania, but Roman Reigns has already made it clear he wants to go for the world title again.
Right.
And so I think you could also use the favor on that and push the match back a little further and be like, the favor was when you win the world title again, Roman, I'm first.
I get a shot. I like that.
So I think that's where they'll go with the favor. And maybe maybe he takes too long, and he's like, I want to cash in the favor and just face you down the road. It was supposed to be for the title, but you blew it. So, but what do you think, Mo? Do you give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to Rhea versus Liv? And we'll add in that little post match celebration with the Undertaker in there.
I enjoyed it. Like I said, Liv has come a long way as an in-ring performer. The way she's built up her persona. When you watched her and Rhea go back and forth, I don't think Liv was out of her element. You could see somebody who's competing with Rhea on an equal basis. I don't think Liv Morgan is going to lose the belt and go away. I think she's established herself as one of the bigger names in women's wrestling. I enjoyed the match, and they might not lock up again anytime soon, but I don't think this is the last time we see those two oppose each other in the ring.
Yeah, completely agree. I'd say this was a thumbs up. This was a good one. It was a great back and forth match. I think you set in Rhea's WrestleMania direction, which I've heard a lot of rumors about Rhea versus Io Sky. I think that's a good one. I'm more of a give me Rhea versus Bianca Belair.
That's where I'm at.
But I thought this was great, and I thought the use of The Undertaker to kind of give Rhea that little nod and try to give her the rub, I thought that was a great use of a legend.
I love that.
Try to get the younger generation over. And I overall absolutely loved it, especially since I thought Taker was a great addition at the end there.
Yeah, I thought Taker coming out, making a ride on his hog, then coming up the ramp and engaging with Rhea, that was like the cherry on top. A really great match. Obviously, a satisfaction outcome with Rhea getting the belt back. I'm excited for the possibility of Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. I think that's gonna become a reality because my gut instinct is I think Bianca's getting ready to show us that she can be a heel. I think it's coming. And I think with her skill set, with her power and her attitude, I think Bianca would make a great heel.
No, absolutely. And of course, we had two more matches to talk about from that night. Drew versus Jey Uso. And this one was surprising.
Upset of the night. Upset of the night.
Yeah, I thought this would be a great win for Drew, but Jay beat him with a surprise roll-up. I was here for it. They had a fun match, and they surprised us. They surprised most of us there at the end with that one.
And the beauty of that match too was when he won, we were all completely surprised. And then after we thought about it for a few minutes, it kind of went along with the theme of the night. All the faces got put over. All the faces won. If you want to call him a face. I mean, the only one, the Rollins Punk match, there was neither one of them was a face or a heel. They're kind of both in the gray area. So that was different. But everything else, everybody that was a face won.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we've given every single thing from this night a thumbs up so far, Mo. But I think this is a part where it comes crashing down and it hurts inside.
If you're talking about what poor Jimmy Hart had to endure, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Of course, WWE didn't listen to the media or social media or anything, which would have been good on this one. They trot out Hulk Hogan to plug his beer. I think we both agree with this one, Mo, that this not only was just a thumbs down, I'm giving it 2 thumbs down. This one was just awful. This was the really first miss of the night for WWE, in my opinion, but it was a major whiff as to what the fans wanted to see.
It was brutal. It was brutal to watch. Look, I'm not in the business of giving Hogan a lot of compliments, but I'll give the guy 100% credit. There's boos raining down on him, and he is staying in character and going through the whole bit and everything. And he's ripping the T-shirt open, and I mean he's staying in character the whole time. And I'm laughing because the more they boo, the more Jimmy Hart fades to the black. Like Jimmy Hart wanted no part of being out there. And the running joke was we thought, back in the locker room, Hogan was like, all right, from now on, Jimmy, I'm coming out alone because they really don't like you.
Yeah, he probably did completely blame Jimmy Hart for that one, is the
Right.
sad part.
Right.
I want to say I hope WWE learned from that, but I also saw him in the promotional material for Saturday night's main event. He was on the commercial. And I just got to say, I hope WWE learns from that mistake and they don't trot him out there on the 25th. At the end of the day, I think we can honestly say at this point, Hulkamania is truly dead. It's done. Nobody wants to see Hulk Hogan anymore.
No. And here's the thing. I understand if you're really into wrestling that Ric Flair is the first superstar in wrestling history. But Hulk Hogan was the first megastar. He was the one that captured and brought in millions. He helped and bring in WrestleMania and make that a thing. That's how big a name he was. So I get it. He carried WWE for many years. Having said that, I'm wondering who owes Hulk Hogan favors in the company. Who owes it? Is he owed a favor, or maybe I don't know this? He secretly owns shares in because Triple H, creative, and the powers that be, they got everything right, and yet somebody, maybe including Triple H, all agreed. It'd be a great idea if we let Hulk come out, run a spot, and promote his beer. Like, who's that you know what that feels like? That feels like a Vince idea. Like somewhere Vince was like, I want Hogan to go out there and plug his beer. And here's the thing about Vince that makes Vince the ultimate petty guy. He knew they would boo him. Vince knew they would boo him, and he was somewhere at home watching and laughing his ass off, like he got exactly what he wanted. He's that guy. He's that petty. I just think that Hogan and his popularity, where it once was and where he is now, especially with the newer fans, there's a huge disconnect. I don't think you need to see Hulk Hogan on a WWE event again, ever, until he lives out his life, and then you want to talk about what he did and bring up the whole Hulk Hogan story or whatever. But right now, the disconnect, because the funny thing is I heard people say, well, no, they don't have respect for the older stars, and I go, that's not true, because Undertaker came out there with Rhea and they loved him. They ate up Taker being out there. They couldn't get enough of him. That's not the case. They don't have that love for Hogan anymore, and you have to admit his bit, it's as old and as tired as he looks. Like that, what you're gonna, all that, nobody wants to hear that anymore, man. You have to stop.
Yeah, he's back to his old bit. The last time he was interesting is when he turned heel and joined the NWO, and when he switched it up, it was interesting. But him trying to do his 1980 stuff in 2025,
right?
It's over, man. Just go retire and hang out in Florida at your little beach shop and just enjoy the rest of your life. But
yeah, live out your life in retirement and enjoy the rest of your life, man, and be remembered as a WWE legend and leave it there. He came out, and the funny thing is when he came out, I thought, wow, Hogan doesn't look much bigger than Jimmy Hart. Like he looked old, but those 24-inch pythons, they look about like 8 inches. They weren't very big. Like they weren't pythons. Those were garden snakes. He needs to go ahead and embrace long sleeve shirts and move on from that.
Yeah, and stop ripping up up the shirts.
right. Stop ripping up your bedroom shirts. Come on, man. Those are your pajamas. Chill, man.
No, absolutely. I don't think you'll hear any disagreements here, Gene. Hogan is awful and him getting booed was amazing. Absolutely.
I
Terrible.
enjoyed
Yep.
it.
Believe me, we all loved it. And then of course the main event of the evening. Seth Rollins versus CM Punk. We kind of talked about this earlier with Gene's question, but when we're talking about the match itself, Mo, what did you think? Did you enjoy this match?
I enjoyed the match. I know they're supposed to be. They do actually have a dislike for each other, but during the course of the match, it felt real. It felt personal. They really embraced their characters in the storyline, and throughout the match, you could tell that Rollins was more concerned with hurting Punk versus winning the match, and Punk took advantage of that when he needed to. I thought it was an entertaining match, and I have no problem with Punk winning because I don't think this is the last match between them. I think we're going to get at least one more, maybe two. I thought they did a great job. Both competitors did, so I thought it was a very entertaining match.
Bothered me. Seth is the guy that's always been the company guy and it's screwed. I will say, I do want to see Seth start getting some wins in these big feuds because they did feed him to Cody when he came back, and now he lost the one to Punk. Great match, by the way. Rollins can have a great match with the pillow, though, absolutely. So I would definitely, I do agree to that extent where I do want to see Rollins kind of start getting some love and, start winning some of these, like, really start winning the bigger feuds. Because it always seems when they bring in somebody new, it's here's Rollins for you to beat. We've seen it with Cody, now we see it with Punk.
I think that's fair. That's a fair statement. Although I look at Seth Rollins and his evolution, and like right now, and he's a huge star, no matter what, whether he's wearing a belt or not. I think we all agree on that. But I feel like Rollins is embraced being a star more than he has worried about winning belts, because I'm just saying the guy spends most of his time dressing like Little Richard, so he seems more comfortable with his gear and things of that nature than really worrying about winning belts. Look, I think he's a great competitor, and I do think he's going to get put over at some point again really soon. Maybe he takes Gunther's belt. Because we could get into a whole other conversation about how I feel like they seem to be wasting Gunther.
I will say, I like Jey Uso. Obviously, I think he's been great, but also like they do need to get Gunther some new opponents. This man has been feuding with either Jey Uso or Damian Priest. It feels like for the entirety of his title reign,
and that's the problem, isn't it? Like, if you're gonna prop up a champion, the way it usually goes, right, is you find him a rival that you can buy into the idea that the rival is as good or better than he is, right? I don't think I've never once thought Damian Priest could beat Gunther, right? I don't believe he can. As much as I love Jey Uso, I don't see Jey Uso beating Gunther. I don't see it.
No, absolutely. I think it's a fine. Like, I'm not too like I like the match. I think he's almost a perfect opponent for an event like Saturday night's main event, where he can come in, he can have a great match with Gunther, and he at least gives you like this idea that he could beat Gunther. There is a threat of him losing the title, even though it's unlikely. So he gives you that like perfect balance of credibility that I think he's a great one-off opponent, but I also really just want to see between now and Mania. I think I definitely want to see him just locked in a big name feud that isn't with anybody in the Judgment Day.
Yeah, give him somebody that's on his level, or somebody that you actually think might be a notch above him, to where you're like, Gunther's the underdog. Like, I think if you give him that, it elevates him as a ring talent and as a competitor, you just can't keep feeding him Damian Priest and Sami Zayn. And I'm not knocking either one of those guys. They're good wrestlers. They're both stars. But I'm talking about when you're Gunther and you wear that belt, you're supposed to be one of the elite, and you need a competitor that lives up to that as well.
I'm saying Jake already in the Rumble confirms he won't win. No, fair enough. So, speaking of the Rumble, Mo, I threw this idea out there, and we both agreed it just seemed like a fun one, Mo. What are your? Because we're gonna do a list. We're gonna have a little fun. We're gonna do a list for anybody listening. Our top 5 favorite Royal Rumble pay-per-views that we've seen. So, yeah, that's Jay has his moments on the mic, but yeah, him having a mouthpiece would be great.
Oh, no doubt.
So, yeah, but we're gonna have fun. We're gonna do a little list of top 5 favorite Royal Rumbles. You know, with the event coming up, figured it was perfect timing for us to get back to a list, right, Mo?
As usual.
So I don't know. Did you wanna start, or did you want me to on this one?
No, you go ahead and cook, and I'll back you up.
I got you. So I'm gonna start off with what very well. This Rumble could very well be the best ever. I completely agree with that. So I'll give you a list of my favorite ones. I'm gonna give you my top 5 favorite Rumbles. Are they in order? Probably not, but the first Rumble I'm gonna mention, and I'd love to hear your guys' top 5 favorite Rumbles. The 2020 Royal Rumble.
Oh, wow.
I thought that this one was perfect. When we're talking about the Royal Rumble match, Drew McIntyre received an absolute hero's welcome, and the crowd went nuts when he eliminated Brock Lesnar. And that was really only topped by Edge coming out like 10 minutes later after he retired a decade earlier. So I thought the Rumble match itself just was absolutely terrific. We had some other absolute bangers. This match also had arguably Bray Wyatt, the Fiend's best match when he faced Daniel Bryan in a strap match. We had Becky Lynch and Asuka had a match at the Rumble. Obviously, Charlotte Flair won from the women's side.
I remember that.
And the opening match was just a very fun brawl with Roman Reigns and Baron Corbin. So overall, I think this definitely cracked my top 5 favorite, because I remember going nuts too when Drew eliminated Brock Lesnar, and I'm thinking like that's going to be the best match of this Rumble or best moment, and then Edge goes out and I just completely lose my mind. So overall, I think I got
Edge.
Yeah, overall, I think I had to put this one in here. There is one that's not going to be here that I know a lot of people love, and I've meant to go back and watch it, by the way, and I just never have. I've heard by many people that the best Royal Rumble is the 2001 Royal Rumble. I know that Stone Cold won that one. I've never gone back and watched it. I will actually have to do that and get back to you guys on that one. But, alas, give me the 2017 Royal Rumble as well. Another one from this past decade. That's another one of my favorites. And a big reason why is, it's weird. It's the best. I've heard this, but I have not gotten to watch it yet. One of these days, I'm going to sit there and watch the whole thing front to back. Now
that's the 01 is great. I love the 07 one. The matchup between Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. Look, Shawn Michaels is one of those. He's just a great big match performer. The Dead Man doesn't disappoint. This is when the Dead Man was still still athletic, still agile. Like that was a great matchup. There are so many great matchups. The 2021 Women's Royal Rumble? I think it had Bianca Belair. The whole crew. That was a great one. There are so many epic, great Royal Rumbles over the years. It's hard. You can pick 5, but I think that if you said great Royal Rumbles, you'd be well into double digits easily.
No, absolutely. But there's a reason I picked the 2017 one, Mo, because the Royal Rumble matches themselves were fine. But actually, this one is one of the rare ones where it had multiple really good matches that may have overshadowed the Royal Rumbles. See, the Royal Rumble, they normally have like 1 or 2 matches, but the Rumble's always the best match of the night, and the most entertaining.
Right.
And if you want to tell me Randy Orton winning was very entertaining, I'm not going to disagree with you. But first off, this gave us a Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns really fun brawl for the Universal title that was just absolutely terrific. But that's not the match that really brought this one into my top 5. This one was almost single-handedly elevated by AJ Styles versus John Cena for the WWE title. I think when we're talking Royal Rumble matches, it could go down as arguably the greatest match in Royal Rumble history. And I think the rest of the card is really solid. It's really good. And I don't know if it cracks my top 5 without this match, but it's one of those rare matches that it's so good, it completely just takes it up so many different levels because him and Cena knocked it out of the park. Obviously, Cena won the title that night before losing it a month later to Bray Wyatt. But I have this in there because it was an entertaining card, but that match was just so mind-blowingly fun that, to me, I just couldn't leave it out.
You get no argument from me. Look, just off the top of my head, may he and his family rest in peace. The 04 Royal Rumble, where everything was set up for Big Show to win. This is when Big Show was probably at the height of his powers, and Chris Benoit survived everything he threw at him, and Chris Benoit beat the Big Show to punch his ticket to WrestleMania. Like, look, again, I'm strictly talking about Chris Benoit, the wrestler, the talent. He was a phenomenal talent, and he's one of those guys that it's hard for Chris Benoit to give you a bad match.
Yeah, he definitely was an exceptional in-ring talent, that's for sure. Shout out to the 2023 Royal Rumble when we had Sammy finally turn on Roman. That was just an absolute, banger of a moment. But the one I enjoyed over that was one you mentioned earlier, the 2007 Royal Rumble. And that is because I think there's 2 matches that bring this above a lot of Rumbles. We already mentioned The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels having a 10-minute instant classic to end the Rumble match itself. Just an absolutely phenomenal Rumble in itself. Right. But what about John Cena versus Umaga in a last man standing match for the WWE title? That, to me, was also a match that kind of elevates this above a lot of these other events. Because, to me, just both of them came out, and, John Cena was still getting "you can't wrestle," chants at the time.
Right.
And this is almost, it feels like where the moniker and where you saw Big Match John show up. And this is almost where people started to call him that because he had shown up in a few big matches before that people respected. They're like, oh yeah, this guy's really good. Shawn Michaels and him the year prior. But what he did with Umaga, that was just absolutely special. And kind of, I would say he had the moniker, but this one almost helped solidify that he was a big match performer. This almost helped solidify the idea of Big Match John. Rest in peace, Umaga.
Yeah, look, I'm with you 100%, partner. I think that it solidified John Cena, not just to the hardcore wrestling fans to casual fans. And let's give credit again, RIP to Umaga, but it worked so well. It was such a big moment because Umaga made a great opponent. He was a beast. I mean, when I remember what Umaga was as an athlete, as a performer, he's kind of like he was Jacob Fatu before Jacob Fatu.
Yeah, and he had the great mouthpiece shout out Armando Alejandro
Right.
Estrada.
Yes, sir.
Another one of my favorites too, by the way, and it almost feels like I'm talking about John Cena a lot because this man has so many amazing Rumble moments. But it's the 2008 Royal Rumble. I think they went back to back with phenomenal Rumbles. Obviously, the big story with this one is John Cena returning from a pec injury, which should have kept him on the shelf for 6 months. He returns in 3 and wins the Royal Rumble. They kept it a complete secret, so Madison Square Garden went bananas when John Cena came out. Just an unbelievable moment, an unbelievable match. Edge versus Rey Mysterio. Edge catching Rey with a midair spear was a ton of fun to retain the title. Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy. Also a really fun one. The great counter twist of fate into the RKO. But this event, to me, was just completely made by the return of John Cena at the end of the night, just making it an all-time great Rumble, even just for that moment alone.
Look, you keep telling yourself you're bringing up Cena a lot, but you're bringing up Cena a lot because he's had this amazing career. And it seems like for whatever reason, he always seemed to show up big and at his best more times than not at the Royal Rumble. Cena was a great wrestler. When we talk about the greatest of the great, he's got to be one of those guys in that conversation. If you said the 5 greatest wrestlers in WWE history, how can John Cena not be one of those 5?
Yeah, fair enough. And I think also rounding out my 5 favorite Royal Rumbles is I'm gonna go with the 2018 Royal Rumble. Because I think they had a lot. Both the men's Rumble was really fun. They had a really fun old school versus new school showdown where they had, I think it was Shinsuke and I can't remember who the other 2 were, but they were staring down John Cena, Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio. I think Roman was one of the final guys in that Rumble too. Overall, I loved it. Also, this is when Asuka won the Royal Rumble. I think this one, the Rumble matches themselves were both excellent. I remember being overly excited for Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles at WrestleMania. It didn't really live up to the excitement levels of the match itself, but I can't knock that. Can't use that as a reason to not put this here because this had me excited. The Usos and Gable and Shelton Benjamin, absolute fun tag team match. And to round out the undercard, we Brock Lesnar versus Kane versus Braun Strowman was an absolutely fun triple threat match. I enjoyed it. Just if you're a big fan of big guys fighting each other, all for it. So I'm going to say the 2018 Rumble, and my big reason is just the men and women's Rumble match were both spectacular in this one.
Since you brought up big guys fighting one, I want to ask you about another match where big guys ended up going up against each other. What were your feelings about Braun Strowman versus Big Cat? Remember Cass when he went up against Cass?
Yeah.
Get that? It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Sometimes they don't live up to the hype. It wasn't horrible.
No.
It just wasn't. It wasn't on par with the matches that you just mentioned.
No, Strowman and like Big Cass. No, that definitely didn't live up to the hype. Big Cass was kind of going through a lot during his end tenure in 2017 there before he got fired. But yeah, no, that definitely didn't. One match that one pay-per-view I wanted to bring up so badly, but I can't because the Royal Rumble match itself was executed so terribly. I want to shout out a specific match, and if we did just best wrestling matches at the Rumble, this would be on there. I'm talking about John Cena versus Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar from the 2015 Royal Rumble.
Mm.
Just an absolutely terrific match that they had. I wish I could say the 2015 Rumble was good, but then we got to remember how the Rumble match itself actually went. Throwing out Daniel Bryan early, having the final three be Roman Reigns, Big Show, and Kane. But I do want to say shout out to that triple threat because that carried that event hard.
That saved it.
That was the only redeeming quality.
Right. Those three saved it.
To me, that was because I know there's a lot of guys who try to say that Brock Lesnar can't wrestle, and that's one of my matches. Like, did you see his work in that triple threat match? Like, I get when he came back in 2012, Brock Lesnar very limited his moveset. But also, like, when he wanted to, when he was motivated, he could put on a good match with anybody. He could put on an absolute banger when he wanted to. The real problem with Brock is motivating him to want to put on that banger.
Agreed. Look, I'm one of those. I'm like, no Brock Lesnar slander, because if you want to bring up how Brock's not the best wrestler, although he was actually a really good wrestler at one point, he got older, and like you said, he limited his move set, but he was always a better wrestler than Goldberg.
Yeah,
I'm just saying Goldberg was a phenom, but he wasn't a great wrestler.
If there's people that really still think that Brock could never wrestle, I'm going to tell you, go back and watch any of the Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle matches from back in the day. You can watch their 60-minute Iron Man match on SmackDown. You can watch the WrestleMania 19 main event. You want to talk nowadays? Go watch his match with Bryan Danielson. Best versus the Beast in 2013 with CM Punk. The triple threat we just mentioned. Like, when he is motivated, what he does well, he does it at elite levels. Are you going to see this man bust out the shooting star press anymore? Absolutely not. But he's an elite seller. When he wants to make you look good, you look like $1 million. And he's just so good at playing his monster role, and he mastered the art of kicking out at 2.99999. He's
really
one of the best kick out artists in the game.
You just mentioned great wrestler, Kurt. I'm just saying, Kurt was a great wrestler. Like, he could grapple with you. He could go aerial. He could brawl a little bit. Kurt Angle was a great wrestler.
I wish Kurt Angle, and I get, him. I wish he would have spent more of his like middle prime in WWE rather than like going to TNA. And
I didn't like that either. Yeah,
I will say I liked his TNA run, but there's just so many guys that I would have just loved to see him match up against more so, right? Like, it's not that his TNA run was bad, because it was absolutely fantastic, but I feel like there's just so many dream matches that we missed out on just from him being there all those years.
When he left WWE, and he was still, like, I would say, like, right at the edge of his peak. You're right. There's limitless dream matchups, because there are certain wrestlers. We brought up Seth Rollins, brought up Shawn Michaels. I think you can throw Kurt Angle in there too, that put him in the ring, and it's a big match with another superstar, and Kurt Angle will make that match work. He's convincing. He can be convincing as a face, but he was so much better as a heel.
And that's the beauty of it, is when Kurt Angle finally left his, like, when he came back, he was just very washed, but that's because he had been out of the ring for years at that point. Like, on a full-time basis. Like, in 2013, 2014, he was still putting on some elite level matches. He was still really good. And if we're talking about Kurt Angle wrestling in 2013, 2014, that means we're getting, as long as, he's still going at an elite level, which he absolutely was, that means we're thinking we can get Kurt Angle versus Bryan Danielson, Kurt Angle versus Seth Rollins, and just such a great myriad of dream matches. Kurt Angle, CM Punk.
I think that's the one I wanted the most. I wanted Kurt Angle versus Seth Rollins. That would have been amazing.
I remember watching Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan have like a quick 1 minute exchange in like the greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, and even just them going at it for a minute, everything was so fluid. And even like Bryan and a washed Kurt Angle, like it was a really fun watching them exchange grapples, and it just makes you think like, man, if only Kurt was 10 years younger.
That is the downside. Father Time is undefeated, but yeah, Kurt Angle, great performer. I think that's why I'm so excited about this particular run with the WWE and their connection, their relationship to Netflix that sets up other promotions, other pay-per-views. I want to see those big matches. Like Gene brought up, I want to see Seth Rollins in some more main events at pay-per-views, eventually Mania again. Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman one more? You know what I mean? I wouldn't mind that.
No, absolutely. And then I know we got to get out of here in a couple minutes, so I'm going to rapid fire some things at you. All right, Mo?
Let's do it.
What did you think about Penta's debut against Chad Gable in the opening match of Raw this week?
There were I think there was a slight hiccup here and there, but the matchup and the athleticism, his explosiveness, Penta's amazing. He's going to be fun. He's going to be fun to watch. What I love is the buildup and the pageantry and the entrance, all of that. Like it was showmanship at the next level. It reminded me of an old school wrestler from probably the early 90s. You might have heard of him. His name was Tiger Mask. But he had that kind of explosiveness, and I look forward to seeing him more and more. I think Penta's going to become the new little big man. They give him some time, and Penta's going to be competing for a belt.
Oh, absolutely. And then soon we're also going to get his brother joining him most likely, and they can reunite as the tag team, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The other one. Oh, yeah. The one thing I'll let you know, Mo, that I hated from Raw is the Wyatt Six are on SmackDown now.
Why?
And that's the reason why I hate it is I feel like they needed to get their comeuppance against the Judgment. I mean, the Final Testament.
Yeah.
Clearly, the Final Testament beat them, handed them the first loss, and now they're just like, all right, off to SmackDown with you. Like, I didn't like that. I thought they should have at least gotten some measure of revenge.
Why are we pumping up the Final Testament again? I thought we realized that that's not going anywhere. Like, what are we doing with that? Why was that necessary? As excited I was about the first Netflix show, this show wasn't bad, but it definitely didn't have the intensity or the star power to me. Like even the main event, I don't need to see Damian Priest and Finn Balor in a ring again. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that again. I'm done with that.
Yeah, I think it's just time to disband the Judgment Day, and especially I never need to see those two in a ring again for a while.
And we don't need to see Carlito come down to the ring every week and take a couple of shots and then run back to the back. I mean, that's pretty much Carlito's role. He interferes, gets beat up, then he runs back to the back.
Yeah, I did see this, Steven. WWE put Saturday night's main event as the same night as AEW All In. So I'm looking forward to that because I do plan on actually I'll probably take off work so I can watch both Saturday night's main event and All In. So I'm looking forward to that though. But before we get up on out here, Mo, anything you want to add, sir?
No, I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining Brett and I. Make sure you check out the Meaty Boyz podcast next Tuesday at 9. And check Brett and I out Thursday night and One podcast. all things and everything NBA. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us for tonight. We'll see you next week when we do Rumble predictions and Rumble breakdowns before we do our next watch along, which is for the Royal Rumble itself. But until then, we thank you very much, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night.